Long before we called it situational awareness, firefighters and managers had developed a sensitivity to fire's behavior and what it could mean to them. Some people even transferred their anticipation of fire behavior in an immediate situation to help them understand what fire behavior they might expect over several months. Listen to Risa Lange-Navarro as she tells about how one event at the beginning of her career helped her develop her skills in anticipating fire behavior. Risa Lange-Navarro began her fire career on a hand crew in Missoula, Montana in 1978. Since then, she has worked in Idaho, Wyoming, Washington, and Oregon on fire management positions in prescribed fire and wildland fire use. She also works as a fire behavior analyst. But one of Risa's most important experiences happened in a classroom setting her first year in fire. In this video, she describes how a burnover survivor's story helped her develop a method of gaming fire using what-if scenarios.
One of the things at guard school in '78 was that was, a year or so after Battlement Mesa. And I remember at guard school, Bob Munch was giving the fire behavior part, and he had a tape of the interview with the crew boss that survived on that. And he was talking about what he had done or what he should have done on this fire. And the interesting part was it was at the hospital, so you could hear like a ventilator in the background. He wasn't on a ventilator, but you could hear a ventilator going in the background. It's almost like I'm not, as much as I can, I'm going to not let that happen to me or anybody that works for me. It was almost like what Paul Chamberlain calls a portal. This could kill me, and I got to keep my wits about it. I got to learn from it to, work with it, not work against it. I think one of the things was that within the interview and even in the investigation, where basically the crews were not really aware of what was going on around them. And now the buzzword is situational awareness. We've always had that, we just never called it that. And I made myself, vow to myself, saying that I would be as situationally aware as I could, knowing not just where I was and what was going on where I am on the fire, but what's going on around me, and being aware of things. Not when I was on the hot shot crew or on the IR crew and things where you're digging line and you're basically concerned with, for the most part you're taught to only be concerned with that part of the line. But I didn't do that. I was always looking around, and I'd get in trouble for it. But at least I knew what was going on, and that's what I learned from this interview, is you've got to be aware of what's going on around you and where you are in relation to these things. I play the what-if game all the time. I play the what-if game like right now when I look at, what's happening in the different parts of the country with the weather. For instance, down there in the south, they had a big ice storm and things like that, which is going to kill a lot of vegetation. Well, that's going to set up some stuff. Some fuels possibly could be available for fuel here in the springtime earlier than that area really gets fires. And then when spring comes around, is looking at what folks are doing around here with their prescribed burns, how the burns were going, were they getting like the larger fuels completely consuming in April and March. And that's a good indicator. So I look at how the environment is reacting to the different things the weather plays, and try and piece together and play the what if game, saying, okay, what if we stop the rain right now? What does that mean for western Montana here now? The other thing I watch is how winds. I'm really curious on how winds work the fire. And so in the wintertime, I'll watch snowstorms go through and see where it deposits, the snow, where the snow is blown off, look at that and say, okay, that's how that terrain is working with the wind. I kind of look at it as all-encompassing. Yeah, it's snow, but snow could be embers. So I look at it that way, saying, okay, well, if the snow was embers, what would it do in that drainage? And how did it work through this draw? Why did it deposit that snow in that area? I really try and get out on the fire first to look and see what it's doing. And so then I'll come back and I'll talk, think to myself, okay, what's it trying to do? based on, things we know about fire behavior. And it's like a movie, where you're going, it's like, okay, I remember this. So you start going through your file system and going, okay, Big Valley, North Slope, which fires? Or once we started talking about Mount Jumbo, I started thinking about, oh, okay, what about Salt Creek Fire and the salmon? Same thing, in a thermal belt, light fuels, in a canyon, in the, Snake River Canyon. How did it perform? Yep, when it got the winds, it stayed in the winds, stayed in the thermal belt, like I said, every fire is different, but they kind of have some good similarities, and that's what I look for is those sorts of things. But the other thing I try and tell folks is like, I've got, almost 30 years, in a fire, working in fire and things like that. It's like, but I go out, every time I go out, I pretend like it's the very first fire I've ever seen and try and learn from it. I always try and start, until I get, until I think about, and start bringing in these little reels of previous fires. As I'll first thing I think of is like, okay, brand new fire. What's going on here? Try and do it as if it was brand new fire, and then I'll start, like I said, then I'll look at it and it's like, okay, let's go see if I can find similarities. So I try and go in green. And my dad, like I said, my dad was a forestry professor here at the school, and he had a saying, and I really hold true. He says, when you're green, you grow. When you root, you rot.
Risa demonstrates one of the consummate skills a fire behavior analyst needs to formulate an accurate fire behavior projection, the ability to balance past experience with current reality. Notice how Risa completes a size-up of a new fire by not believing that her slide tray of past fires contains every clue to the current fire's potential behavior. She tests her past experience by seeing the new fire as if it were the first fire she had ever seen. She doubts herself, admitting that she may not know everything there is to know about this new fire. She increases her vulnerability and the gaps in her own thinking by going in green, and in the process is much more likely to catch an unexpected fire behavior event before it occurs. The skill that Risa demonstrates, balancing past experience with current reality, is that of mindfulness, the ability to challenge original expectations. Mindfulness as a method of updating expectations by doing a better job of anticipating and containing unexpected events is described in White and Sutcliffe's book, Managing the Unexpected. Secure a copy of their book and begin applying mindfulness to your fire behavior assessments.